Part 54. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Ken Ru Xiahua. Chapter 531. She doesn't want to be a vase with only ornamental value, because such a vase will slowly lose its value over time and be abandoned. Her thoughts have always been clear, especially when she knew that Li Yuan had other girlfriends. When she and Li Yuan founded the milk tea catering brand Cha Yan Use, her originally vague thoughts became clearer. She wanted to help Li Yuan in Li Yuan's career and her own career, to show her strength and to be a business queen. Before, he and she were still very cautious, fearing that Li Yuan didn't know why he liked her doing this. But as she continued to communicate with Li Yuan, she could clearly feel that Li Yuan liked what she did. Moreover, not only her, but also Baiwixi and Xia's Haijin were also deliberately cultivated. Baiwixi majored in finance, so Li Yuan asked her to learn financial knowledge and understand the company's financial status. Although Xia's Haijin, like Li Yuan, studied computers, Li Yuan now also asks her to be responsible for the financial and human resources work of Honor of Kings and Zhi.com. In Zhong Tingyu's mind, several conversations he had with his mother during the Chinese New Year a few days ago resurfaced. At that time, her mother Gu Langzhen asked her what kind of life she wanted in the future. She herself was confused at the time and didn't know how to answer, because she didn't really know. Later, it was her mother who used her own personal experience as an example to wake her up. To this day, she still remembers what her mother said to her. "Little Moon, your dad doesn't love me anymore. He doesn't even want to touch me anymore. Haha, because I'm already old, how can I compare with those young and beautiful girls?" Just this sentence made her understand that if she was willing to be a vase with only ornamental value, then her mother's experience would probably be her own ending. She didn't want this ending. Then you can only let yourself change from a vase to a part of Li Yuan's career, an indispensable part, and an inseparable part. Only then can she and Li Yuan be together for a long time. Love is not just about you and me, but also about mutual trust and mutual needs. This can be an emotional need or a need in life and work. She wanted it all. Whether it is buying a courtyard house or a villa, or inspecting a company branch or selecting a store location, it is not a matter of a day or two. Li Yuan and Zhong Tingyu just mentioned it casually and did not do it immediately. The main task of these 2 days is to visit the imperial capital and be a tourist. As for making money, buying a house, investing, etc., they are just some episodes in a boring life, adding some polish to life. Now that I can be said to be financially free, I still work hard to make money instead of enjoying life wantonly. So what is the purpose of making so much money? Are you waiting to be confiscated by 404? He is not a big fool. In the next 2 days, Li Yuan and Zhong Tingyu had long forgotten about investing and buying a house, and enjoyed visiting the imperial capital, looking at various legendary places of interest, and enjoying the prosperity of the imperial capital. In the blink of an eye, 2 days passed. On February 1, 2009, the 7th day of the Lunar New Year. After spending more than 2 days touring the imperial capital's delicious food, fun, and sights, Li Yuan and Zhong Tingyu finally had some time to spare and began to seriously prepare for the company's expansion. "Senior, these 2 nights, I learned some information from the internet and contacted several powerful real estate agencies in Imperial City. They have already found some houses based on our needs." Zhong Tingyu smiled. "Of opening. We can go take a look today." Naturally, she and Li Yuan did not need to take action personally when looking for houses or listings. All they had to do was contact the real estate company and tell them their needs. Because the requirements put forward by the 2 people were very high, and the value of the property purchased was in the hundreds of millions, the real estate company was naturally very concerned about it. Even during the Spring Festival holiday, they were busy non-stop, contacting the property and buyer. Li Yuan gently placed his lips on Zhong Tingyu's crystal clear nose and joked with a smile. Tisk tisk, my moon goddess is so awesome, she's simply amazing. Okay, after 2 days of wandering around the imperial capital, I've finished my main business, and it's time to do some small things. Listening to Li Yuan's answer, Zhong Tingyu laughed so hard that she rolled her eyes at Li Yuan, feeling very happy in her heart. Li Yuan regarded traveling and shopping with him as business, while investing and company expansion as little things, which made her feel very touched. Hee, senior, if other businessmen heard what you said, they would probably want to scold you. These words are too irritating. Li Yuan laughed dumbly. He didn't lie. Investing in starting a business was really just a little thing that happened by the way. As a reborn person, after accumulating original capital, as long as you are not a scumbag, getting involved in gambling and drugs, isn't it easy to make money? Let's not talk about other things. It's already February 2009. Bitcoin is coming out soon. If you just hoard some Bitcoin and other digital currencies, you won't have to worry about it for the rest of your life, right? Other things, some stocks, football games, etc., as long as you are not completely isolated from the world or mentally retarded, is it difficult to make money? The only thing that is difficult is how to make the first pot of gold. Chapter 303 Baiwaxi's Entanglement, Shocked Mother-in-Law. When Li Yuan and Zhong Tingyu made an appointment with a real estate agency to go and see a house thousands of miles away, in the hometown of northern Anhui, Baiming County. Baiwaxi sat at home blankly, looking at the text messages sent on the phone, feeling very confused and entangled. On the fourth night of the Lunar New Year, high school classmates gathered together. Because Suji glanced at Wang Yuchen's phone, a series of things happened, making her feel exhausted these days, and even couldn't sleep well. Whenever she was about to go to bed, the hysterical words that Wang Yuchen said to her that night would appear in her mind. This made her doubt herself. Is this how the good friend, classmate, and bestie whom she had known for 7 or 8 years looked at her? This made her lose a good friend. But looking at the apology text message sent by Wang Yuchen on her phone, she hesitated again. Yuchen was angry because of the breakup with Suji that night. Should I forgive her? Baiwaxi murmured to herself, feeling very complicated. Wang Yuchen's apology attitude was very sincere, and he sent many words in text messages. Ziobai, I'm really sorry that night, I was in a bad mood because of the breakup with Suji. I drank again and was not sober. I said some nonsense. It was all my fault. Please forgive me this time. Okay, we have known each other since junior high school for so many years, you are my only best friend. I don't want to lose you. Looking at the text messages on the phone, Baiwaxi was entangled in her heart for a long time, and still felt that she should give Wang Yuchen another chance. She only has this one good friend who she has known for many years, and she doesn't want to lose this friend just because of this. Baiwaxi took the phone, thought for a long time, edited many words, and deleted them one by one. Finally, she only left a word clicked, and sent. After replying the message, Baiwaxi looked towards the distant north, as if she had penetrated thousands of miles away, and saw Li Yuan, who was shopping and playing with Zhong Tingyu, feeling a little sad and missing. Brother, I also want you to accompany me and travel together. At this time, the bedroom door was suddenly knocked. Waxi, are you not asleep? Yang Jinyu's voice came from the door. No. Mom, Baiwaxi replied. Yang Jinyu pushed the door open and looked at her baby daughter, who was sitting in a daze at the desk, feeling a little confused. These 2 days, her baby daughter has been absent-minded, which makes her very worried. At first, she thought that she had quarreled with Li Yuan and got angry, but her daughter said it was not, and she was unwilling to elaborate. Seeing Yang Jinyu coming in, Baiwaxi forced a smile on her face, sorted out her mood, and asked with a smile. Mom, it's so late, do you have anything to do? Yang Jinyu walked over, touched her baby daughter's long black hair, and reminded. Wuxi, if you really encounter any troubles, you can talk to mom may be able to help you with some advice. Bai Wuxi shook her head, smiled lightly, and said gently. Mom, I'm really fine, I'm fine now. Yang Jinyu saw that her baby daughter was really unwilling to talk, so she didn't force her. She sorted out her words in her mind and asked tentatively. Wuxi, it's like this, can mom ask you something? Bai Wuxi looked puzzled, not knowing what her mother wanted to ask, but nodded. Mom, what's the matter, tell me. Yang Jinyu thought of what she was going to ask, and felt a little embarrassed. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Ken Ru Xiahua. Chapter 532. If it weren't for the fact that she had already blown it out, she really couldn't say this out of favor. Wei 11, I want to ask, do you have money on hand now? Hearing Yang Jinyu's question, Bai Wuxi looked stunned and a little confused. Why did his mother ask like this? Could it be that the family encountered some difficulties? It's not right to be happy. Although my parents are just ordinary teachers, their combined salary is quite a lot of money. In a small place like my hometown, the cost of ordinary favors is not that exaggerated. Bai Wuxi asked with a slightly worried expression. Yes, Mom, what's wrong? Yang Jinyu said a little embarrassedly, well, how many do you have on you? How many? Bai Wuxi was stunned again. She really didn't know how much money she had. Li Yuan gave her a bank card. She could spend it casually if she wanted to. She didn't care how much money was in it. Many times, when she and Li Yuan went shopping together, Li Yuan would pay the bill. She didn't go out much with her roommates and friends alone, and she didn't spend much money. Mom, I don't know, I don't pay much attention. Bai Wuxi was stunned for a moment before answering. Mom, what happened at home? Do you need money? Yang Jinyu looked deeply at her precious daughter, feeling a little complicated. My precious daughter is good at everything, but she is not very smart and she doesn't even know how much money she has. In this case, Li Yuan's property situation will be even less clear. How does this work? It is necessary to cultivate the awareness of financial management in your baby daughter so that she can make plans for the future. If one day, Li Yuan really changes his mind, or in other words, does not plan to marry his daughter, he can spend the rest of his life safely with money in hand. Thinking of this, Yang Jinyu gave serious instructions. Wei 11, I know Li Yuan is very kind to you, and you are not short of money. However, you must also be cautious. Li Yuan is not just you, there are other women as well. There are things that you need to fight for yourself, you also need to have financial awareness and save more private money to be prepared. No matter what the future holds or what happens, we can face it calmly. Listening to her mother's teachings, Bai Wuxi frowned, feeling a little unhappy. However, although she was unhappy in her heart, she also understood that her mother was thinking about herself. Mom, I understand, Bai Wuxi replied perfunctorily. Yang Jinyu just thought of this matter and reminded him casually. Seeing Bai Wuxi's attitude of going in one ear and out the other, he could only stop the topic and explain his purpose. Wuxi, it's like this. Isn't your cousin also working in Magic City? He's getting married. The woman asked your cousin to buy a house in Magic City. Your uncle didn't have enough money at home, so he approached your dad and wanted to borrow some. You also know that your dad and I have been spending money lavishly, and we haven't saved much money. I was thinking, if you have any money in your hands, could you give some to your uncle first? Originally, your dad should be the one to talk about this matter. After all, it is a matter of their Lao Bai family. But your dad is too thin-skinned to show off his face, so I'm here to ask. After Yang Jinyu explained the whole story, he quickly added another sentence. Way 11, I just mentioned casually. If you have spare money, please help. If you don't have any money, I will tell your uncle the truth and let him think of other ways. He is a public official. If he really can't do it, he can apply for a loan. If he borrows more, he can still make up the down payment. Biwixie didn't expect that when her mother came to her room at night, it would be about borrowing money. She has a good impression of her cousin. When she was young, she often took her to play with him. I went to the Aeronautics and Astronautics University in the Imperial Capital and have been working in the Imperial Capital. I didn't expect to buy a house in the Magic Capital now. Biwixie asked, Mom, how much do I need to borrow? Yang Jinyu said a little embarrassedly, your uncle said that he wanted to borrow 200,000. 200,000. Biwixie was stunned and felt relieved. She should have this amount of money in her bank card. It should be 200,000, but I'm not sure. I have to go to the bank to check. Hearing what his daughter said, Yang Jinyu felt relieved and said with a smile. Okay, your dad and I will accompany you to the bank to check it out tomorrow. Biwixie nodded. Yang Jinyu added, besides this matter, I have something else I want to discuss with you. Biwixie asked curiously, Mom, what did you say? Yang Jinyu smiled and said, that's right. Didn't Li Yuan buy you a big house in Shanghai? I heard you say that the house hasn't been renovated yet, right? Yeah, Biwixie nodded. Before coming back, Li Yuan took her to see that house once. It was not a complete rough house. It was simply decorated and the water and electricity were connected. Yang Jinyu smiled expectantly and said, it's like this. Now the relatives in my hometown have basically left. Didn't you say you were going back to Magic City in the next 2 days? Your dad and I were thinking about you going back to Magic City alone. We are not too worried, so we will send you a special trip. By the way, I'll stop by the Magic City to take a look at your house and see how to decorate it. We can also have a place to stay when we go to the Magic City in the future. In addition to looking at the house, your dad and I also want to take you to visit your grandparents' house. Your grandparents are getting older and their health is getting worse. A few days ago, they just had blood clots. You are still hospitalized after the operation. Your uncle told me to let me go back and take a look when I have time. Biwixie didn't have a deep impression of her grandparents. She had met them a few times, and they gave her the impression that they were more serious and difficult to approach. She had little affection for her relatives there because she had too little contact with them. However, seeing his mother's expression, Biwixie nodded and agreed. Okay, Mom, I'll go with you. Early the next morning, Biwixie was called by Yang Jinyu, and they went to the bank to check the balance. Biwixie's bank card belonged to China Construction Bank, and coincidentally, there was a county branch of China Construction Bank at the gate of number 4 middle school. Old Bai, go and line up. There are quite a lot of people today on the 6th day of the Lunar New Year. Yang Jinyu pushed Bai Qi and asked him to queue up. A black line flashed across Biwixie's head, and he said in a speechless voice. Mom, you don't need to queue at the window. You can check it directly at the ATM. There happens to be no one right now. I'll go check. Only then did Yang Jinyu come to his senses, patted his head and said with a smile. I haven't withdrawn money for a long time. I almost forgot about this. Then you should check it quickly. Biwixie smiled slightly, came to the ATM, inserted the black gold card into the card slot, and entered his birthday. Then, click check balance. In an instant, a large series of numbers appeared on the mechanical display. The balance of your bank card with the last number 2750 is 5457892.45 yuan. Seeing this number, Biwixie subconsciously counted the decimal points. 1, 2, 7 digits, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, 10,000, 100,000, millions. More than 5 million? How come it's so much? Baiwixi exclaimed in fright at the number in the bank card. Beside Baiwixi, Yang Jinyu and Bai Tiankai were curious about how much money was in their daughter's bank card. Suddenly I heard an exclamation from Baiwixi, and I was shocked when I heard the words 5 million, and I couldn't believe it. Yang Jinyu's eyes widened and he quickly asked, "Wei 11, how much did you just say?" Baiwixi was only in a daze for a moment, but quickly came to his senses. Thinking of Li Yuan directly depositing 5 million into his bank card, I felt sweet and happy. Baiwixi smiled sweetly and replied, "Dad, Mom, you can see for yourselves." Baiwixi moved away and allowed Bai Tiankai and Yang Jinyu to come over. When the two of them looked at the account balance, which clearly showed a balance of more than 5 million, they were immediately shocked. 5.45 million, are my eyes dazzled? Bai Tiankai was stunned and speechless. Even he was shocked by this number. He had never seen so much money. He and Yang Jinyu have accumulated only 1 or 200,000 in their lifetime, which is not much more than this. While Yang Jinyu's mind was shaken, she thought of more. When she looked at her precious daughter, she felt even more satisfied. It seems like Li Yuan is really good to Wei 11, Yang Jinyu thought to himself. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Ken Ru Xiahua. Chapter 533. The last trace of grudge was gradually dissipated in front of real money. I haven't seen the house in Magic City yet, but the balance in this account is truly displayed in front of me. Yang Jinyu came back to her senses and asked curiously, "Wixi, why did Li Yuan give you so much money? Did he ask you to use it to decorate the house?" Bai Wixi shook his head, "I don't know when he transferred so much money. As for the decoration of the house, he didn't say anything, and I didn't ask. We now live in another villa." Yang Jinyu looked at her silly daughter and was speechless. "I have 500 or 600 toys in my bank card, but I don't even know it. I just put them in my bag casually and put them wherever I go without fear of losing them." Bai Tiankai looked at the queue of people behind the cash machine and quickly reminded, "Wei 11, put the card away first, let's talk about it when we go home." Bai Wixi was stunned and asked subconsciously, "Dad, don't you want to withdraw money? I'll transfer it to you directly." Bai Tiankai shook his head, "We'll talk later. Take out the card and put it away first." Bai Wixi nodded in confusion. After returning home, Bai Tiankai immediately called his elder brother and said he could borrow the money. Yang Jinyu reminded, "Wixi, please transfer this 200,000 to your father and ask your father to lend it to your uncle. The two brothers will need it in the future." Bai Wixi didn't understand much, so he just nodded his head obediently. Yang Jinyu said again, "Lao Bai, remember, this is lent to the elder brother's family. Keep the remittance slip and IOU." Bai Tiankai frowned slightly and wanted to say something, but when he saw Yang Jinyu's serious gaze, he finally nodded as well. After Yang Jinyu gave the instructions, he smiled and took Bai Wixi's little hand, and said with an excited look, "Wixi, let's drive to Shanghai today to see your new house." Chapter 304. Father-in-law, are you guys living together with Li Yuan? Listening to Yang Jinyu arranging everything in an orderly and clear manner, Bai Tiankai and Bai Wixi, father and daughter, looked at each other and suddenly felt a familiar feeling. This feeling is exactly the same as what I experienced more than 10 years ago. From food and clothing, hobbies and clothing, everything was covered by my mother. This is because Bai Wixi's personality is not very strong, but also a bit emotional and cowardly. Otherwise, under the circumstances where his mother has arranged everything since he was a child, he might develop a very rebellious character. Yang Jinyu asked, Lao Bai, Wei 11, what do you think? Bai Wuxi nodded quickly, Mom, I have no objection. I will listen to you. Bai Tiankai opened his mouth and was about to say something. He didn't need to ask his eldest brother to write an IOU. He had just been silent for a while, thinking about how to speak. Before he could open his mouth, he heard Yang Jinyu staring directly at him. Lao Bai, what about you? Why don't you say anything? Do you have any objections? Tian Tiankai met Yang Jinyu's gaze and could only swallow the words he was about to say again in his throat, and nodded helplessly. I don't have any objection either. Yang Jinjin didn't know what the father and daughter were thinking at this moment. Seeing that both father and daughter agreed with her opinion, she waved her hand and spoke resolutely, making a decision. Then it's settled, Lao Bai, Wei 11, let's go to the bank together first, transfer the money to your dad's bank card, and then ask your dad to transfer it to your uncle. After half a day. Looking at the IOU in his hand, Bai Tiankai regained his composure from his complicated mood. As the saying goes, brothers should settle accounts clearly, so it is better to write it clearly to avoid having to argue about this matter in the future. At this time, Bai Tiankai looked at the mother and daughter, whose face was glowing red, holding hands with their baby daughter, as if they were as close as sisters. When I just went to the bank, my precious daughter transferred 500,000 cash to each of the couple's bank cards without saying a word, and specifically said it was pocket money for the two of them. This made him, an old father, feel valued for the first time in his life. After all, since his marriage, he has never had more than 500 yuan in his wallet and bank card. The financial power of the family has always been in the hands of Yang Jinyu. Looking at my baby daughter with a smile on her face, I remembered something she secretly said to me. Dad, this is pocket money for you, don't give it to my mother if it's not enough, tell me secretly and I'll transfer it to you. Just these words from Bai Wuxi made Bai Tiankai feel extremely moved. This is the advantage of having a daughter. She is really a close-fitting little cotton-padded jacket for the old father, and she is so caring. His precious daughter, from childhood to adulthood, has really fulfilled all his fantasies about a daughter in every aspect. Thinking of this, Bai Tiankai couldn't help but think of the particularly unpleasant words Bai Wuxi said at home that day after learning the truth about the fact that he and Li Yuan were together. He felt a little regretful in his heart and made a decision secretly. Wei 11, if Li Yuan does not marry you but marries someone else in this life, your father and I will help you seek justice even if we risk our lives. At noon that day, just after dinner, Bai Wuxi and his parents drove a Mercedes-Benz car towards the Magic City. By 6 or 7 in the evening, the family of 3 had already arrived in the Magic City. Bai Wuxi asked, Dad, Mom, should we go to eat first or go home first? Yang Jinyu asked, let's go home first. I'm a little tired after riding for a long time. Where do you live now? Is it still the same Jade Mansion community as before? Bai Wuxi shook his head and explained with a slightly shy expression, no, I live in Xingbei now. Speaking of this, a blush suddenly appeared on Bai Wuxi's cheeks. She suddenly thought that she was living with Li Yuan, Zhong Tingyu, and Xiao's Haijin. If her parents found out about this, wouldn't it be very embarrassing if they asked to go and have a look? Sure enough, as she expected, Zhimu is nothing more than a daughter. Yang Jinyu directly proposed that he should go to Star River Bay to visit. Wuxi, let's go and see where you live. Didn't you say that you live in a single-family villa now? I really want to see what a villa worth tens of millions in the Magic City looks like. Bai Wuxi looked panicked, his body trembled suddenly, and he immediately started hesitating. Mom, how about we go to Jade Mansion community? As soon as Yang Jinyu heard Bai Wuxi's tone, he knew something was not right, and asked in surprise. What's wrong? Don't you have the key to the villa? As Yang Jinyu talked, he shook his head to himself. No, aren't they all password locks and fingerprint locks now? Mom, that's not the case. It's because Biwixie was a little shy about talking. She was afraid that telling her parents that she and several of her would live together would make them furious and lose their temper. Yang Jinyu was indeed born in a big city and had seen a lot of the world. When he saw Biwixie's shy expression, he immediately guessed something. Full of surprise, she said, "Wei 11, you two must be living together, right?" Hearing Yang Jinyu's question, Bai Tiankai, who was driving quietly, suddenly tensed up. He chatted for a while, clicked on the brakes, and then raised his ears, ready to hear his daughter's answer. Facing her mother's surprised and curious eyes, Biwixie plucked up her courage, thinking that she couldn't hide it anyway. Her mother had already guessed it, and she wasn't very good at lying, so she just admitted it. Biwixie said as quietly as an ant, admitting the fact that they already lived together. Seeing Biwixie's admission, Yang Jinyu's heart suddenly thumped. He was about to reprimand, but looked at Biwixie's nervous and worried expression and swallowed his words. She had already thought of this situation. Since Li Yuan, that love-minded man, can make the three of them accept each other's existence and give each other high praise, it means that his methods of picking up girls are top-notch. It is too easy to grab a few little girls who have just entered college and let them live together. This phenomenon is not common among wealthy people. Not to mention other things, she heard that in some cities, isn't it very common for young men and women to live together? The world is so big and there are various situations that no one can do but you can't imagine. Yang Jinyu was about to speak. Suddenly, the car suddenly stopped. The mother and daughter were sitting in the back seat, almost bumping into the front seat. Bai Tiankai's voice came faintly. "Biwixie, I hope you will respect yourself more in the future." After listening to his father's words, Biwixie's face was hot, and he opened his mouth, wanting to explain, but he didn't dare to speak. However, I don't know when, because of the grievance in my heart, crystal tears shone around my eyes. Yang Jinyu hated Bai Tiankai's criticism of Biwixie the most, and snorted coldly. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 534. Drive your car properly, it's not a big deal. After saying that, he reached out and touched Biwixie's head, comforting him. "Wixie, don't be angry, your father is like this. Come on, it's still early, let's go check out your new house." "Where is your new house?" "Tianyu Yupan community, right?" Biwixie wiped her tears and nodded obediently. Yang Jinyu smiled and said, "Okay, show me the way and we'll go there." Biwixie shook his head in confusion. "Mom, I'm not familiar with the road either. The magic city is too big." Bai Tiankai answered, "This car has a car navigation system, just follow it." On the 6th day of the Lunar New Year, the magic city has become crowded again, and migrant workers returning home have begun to return one after another. The family of three drove for more than half an hour before following the car navigation and arriving at the Tianyu Yupan community. When he came to the gate, Yang Jinyu kept praising. "This community looks very grand from the outside, and the gate feels very upscale. The doorman, security, and greening are all very good. It's also close to the river and the scenery is great. It deserves to be a top-notch community." Bai Tiankai was silent all the way. At this moment, he finally asked, "Wixie, can the car be driven in? Or should it be parked outside?" Biwixie nodded, "You can drive in. Years ago, when I came to teach property management fees, I had already entered the license plate numbers of the two cars. There is our parking space here, and my car is parked inside." Bai Tiankai said and drove into the community. Yang Jinyu asked curiously, "In such a high-end community, the annual property cost is quite high, right?" Biwixie nodded, "It seems to be more than 50 per square meter. For a year, it's about 10 or 20,000. Yang Jinyu clicked his tongue and sighed, 10,000 or 20,000. Tisk, tisk, the property fee alone is enough for an average person, and they can't afford to live there. Not counting extra money, her monthly salary is just over 2,000. If you want to live here, 1 year's property fees will eat up all your salary. After entering the community, Yang Jinyu kept looking at the internal environment of the community, especially the people he met occasionally. Without any surprise, they were all dressed up very delicately, either beautiful or grand. At first glance, they were not ordinary people. That kind of self-confidence is like innate. The three of them got out of the car and walked in the direction by Wixie pointed, and happened to pass by the villas in front of them. Hey, this is the villa area. It looks really good. This villa must cost tens of millions. Bai Wixie looked at the villa pointed by her mother and felt very strange in her heart. Because this villa was bought by Li Yuan and it was a well-decorated set. Years ago, Li Yuan took the three of them to visit and entered the fingerprint system. When Bai Wixie thought of this, a bold idea suddenly came to his mind. Anyway, they haven't moved into this villa yet, so they can take their parents to visit it. Moreover, this villa is larger than the villa in Star River Bay next door, and the decoration inside is basically complete. It has a more Chinese style and a sense of grandeur. She heard from Li Yuan that this house seemed to belong to an official. Then, for some unknown reason, the official renovated the house and sold it before even moving in. Bai Wixie took Yang Jinyu's hand and said with a smile, "Mom, Dad, the villa you just pointed out was also bought by Li Yuan. Do you want to go and visit it?" "What? Li Yuan also bought this villa?" Yang Jinyu was stunned. She had just praised these luxurious villas. "I am still thinking in my mind, what is the status of someone who can afford such a villa in Shanghai?" Unexpectedly, before he finished speaking, his precious daughter told him that this was also his son-in-law's house. "Oh, my son-in-law is also a billionaire, so that's okay." Yang Jinyu said excitedly, "Li Yuan actually bought it, doesn't that mean it belongs to you? Come on, let's go visit it together." With that said, he took Bai Wixie's little hand and walked happily towards the villa. The moment Bai Wixie opened the villa, Bai Tiankai and Yang Jinyu stared at the luxurious decoration inside, with expressions as if Grandma Lu had entered the Grand View Garden. Tisk, tisk, the decoration is really good. It has the air of a dignitary. It looks like a house where a big official lives. Yang Jinyu clicked his tongue in surprise. Wixie, Li Yuan is young. I thought he would have a Western decoration style, but I didn't expect that he would like this decoration style. It will cost a lot of money to decorate it, right? Bai Wixie chuckled, knowing that her mother had misunderstood, and explained with a smile. "Mom, the decoration these days is not done by Li Yuan, it's the decoration he bought. I heard that this villa seems to belong to a high-ranking official in Shanghai." Yang Jinyu asked in surprise, "Can high-ranking officials afford such a distinction?" Before she could finish her words, Bai Tiankai snorted suddenly and added, "Humph, you don't understand. You don't think that real high officials rely on wages like us, do you?" Yang Jinyu also hummed, Tiankai, others don't understand, only you understand. If you know so much, why don't you become a high-ranking official and take us two to live in a big villa?" Bai Tiankai was choked by Yang Jinyu and was speechless. Bai Wixie saw that his parents started to quarrel again, and hurriedly acted as a peacemaker. "Mom and Dad, stop talking. I will take you to visit various places, okay?" After Bai Wixie finished speaking, he hurriedly took Bai Tiankai and Yang Jinyu's hands on the left and right and went to visit everywhere. "This family will be broken up sooner or later without me," Bai Wixie muttered in his heart. "Dad, Mom, this is the first floor, with a kitchen, a living room, 2 guest bedrooms, and 2 bathrooms, which can be used to accommodate guests and live in for the nanny. The second floor is mainly the master bedroom, and there is also a baby room, a large public bathroom, and each bedroom has a separate cloakroom and bathroom. The third floor is a study, leisure space, and a movie bar, where you can sing and watch movies. There is an open balcony where you can grow flowers and grass, and sit here to enjoy the moon at night. In addition to the upper and lower 3 floors, there is also a basement, which is mainly a storage space, where you can store some red wine, white wine, etc. Baiwixi took his parents and took a serious tour. Yang Jinyu said with emotion, "It's really good. If I can live here, it will be worth it for a lifetime." Even Bai Tiankai, who has always been picky, was greatly shocked after the tour and kept silent. To be honest, this kind of Chinese-style decoration style is too much to his taste. It is simply an ideal residence. Before, I only dared to think about it when I was dreaming. After Yang Jinyu sighed, she looked at Baiwixi. She was more concerned about the house that belonged to her daughter. "Wixi, take me and your father to see your own house." Chapter 305 Mother-in-law, I quit my job to take care of your children. Okay, let's go see your own house and give you some reference for decoration. Yang Jinyu pulled Baiwixi with anticipation and left as soon as she said she would. Obviously, she paid more attention to the house that belonged to Baiwixi. Although the villa is good, it only belongs to Li Yuan, not her daughter. And the large flat that Li Yuan gave, the property certificate clearly stated that the ownership of the house belongs to her daughter personally. This has a completely different meaning for her. It is also with this house that she and Bai Tiankai can tacitly acknowledge the existence of such a relationship between her daughter and Li Yuan. Otherwise, without sufficient material and economic security, few parents would be willing to let their beloved daughter share a man's feelings with other women, right? Even so, if the two of them didn't still have some thoughts in their hearts, thinking that Li Yuan would eventually choose to marry his precious daughter home in a formal way because of the emotional foundation, the couple would also be hesitant whether to agree. In private, she and Bai Tianliang have discussed this matter many times. Baiwixi held her parents' hands on the left and right, like a little princess who was loved by everyone. She has indeed been loved all the time. She is beautiful, has good grades, and is very obedient. She has always been the child of other people's families in the mouths of relatives and friends. The most important thing is that she is an only child. How could she not be loved by her parents? Dad, Mom, this villa behind the villa area is the location of my house. There are only 10 floors in total. My house is on the top floor, and it also comes with a semi-open balcony. I'll take you to see it. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 535. As a garden house in a top community, the elevators are one for each household, which is very concealed. Currently, it is one of the most expensive properties in Shanghai, with a unit price of more than 30,000 yuan per square meter. When Baiwixi entered the password and turned on the lights in the room, Yang Jinyu and Bai Tiankai suddenly looked at it excitedly. With an area of 388 square meters, plus the free sky garden, the total area was more than 400 square meters. They were all placed on the first floor, making the room look extra large. Especially the huge floor-to-ceiling windows. Through the window, you can look down at the river view outside the window, the endless flow of vehicles, the crowds of people, the colorful neon lights. Tisk tisk, Way 11, Lao Bai, standing here, looking out the window, it feels really nice. I feel relaxed and happy, my soul feels like it has been let go, and I feel like home. Yang Jinyu opened the window, stretched out her arms, and her hair was blown by the night river breeze, enjoying the atmosphere of this international metropolis. I feel that living here is much more comfortable than living in the villa just now. Yang Jinyu joked towards Baiwixi with a smile on his face. Wixi, Li Yuan has a very good taste and is very good at choosing houses. Bai Wuxi snorted arrogantly, of course, otherwise, my daughter wouldn't fall in love with him. Yang Jinyu smiled, looked at the decoration of the house price, and nodded secretly. Wuxi, do you think this is a simple decoration? I think it's pretty good. Although it's not as well decorated as the villa just now, it's much better decorated than the house in our hometown in northern Mongolia. I don't understand either, Li Yuan said this. Bai Wuxi shook her head, she didn't know much about decoration. After Li Yuan said that this was a simple decoration, she could redecorate it according to her own favorite style later. After Yang Jinyu carefully looked at the living room, bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, cloakroom, chess and card room, mother and baby room, etc., she felt even more satisfied with this house. Even, involuntarily, he took out his mobile phone and took pictures of each room. Mom, why are you photographing the house? Bai Wuxi asked in confusion. Yang Jinyu chuckled and replied meaningfully, don't worry about it, I'm useful anyway. Oh. Oh, Bai Wuxi smiled sweetly. At this time, Bai Tiankai couldn't help but curl his lips when he saw his wife excitedly taking photos. He knew immediately what Yang Jinyu was planning to do when he took photos of this house. Needless to say, it must be to slap some people in the face. After some colleagues and friends found out about Li Yuan and Bai Wuxi's situation, although they didn't talk openly about it to their faces, they secretly gossiped a lot. He himself was very angry, and even got angry at his precious daughter who he had loved since childhood because of this incident. Not to mention Yang Jinyu, who was married from a big city and has always been proud and arrogant. Although there is a real estate certificate as proof, how can the real estate certificate contain a real house? What is more shocking? After a while, under the gaze of father and daughter, Yang Jinyu, who took many photos of the house, took back his phone with a satisfied smile and muttered. Hee, there is no picture and no truth. It depends on these talkative women, what else can they say? After Yang Jinyu finished speaking, he looked at Bai Wuxi with a smile and said with a smile. Wuxi, I see everything in this house is complete. We don't need to live anywhere else at night. We can just build it here. What do you think? Ah. Live here, Bai Wuxi was stunned, looking a little confused. But, here, there are no toiletries, toothbrushes and toothpaste, quilts and sheets, etc. This house is indeed simply furnished. It is fully equipped with water, electricity, gas, etc., including beds, mattresses, etc. But because she had only been brought here once before years ago, Li Yuan didn't let her live here for the time being, so she didn't buy anything. Yang Jinyu replied nonchalantly, what's here? It's just some toiletries, a 4-piece set and the like. It's still early, we can buy it. I remember that there is a large shopping mall next to this community, which is very convenient for selling thank you items. Besides, I also brought some cosmetics and the like. Mom has said this. How else can Bai Wuxi answer? He can only nod in agreement. Okay then. Yang Jinyu smiled cheerfully, okay, let's go, let's eat first and then go shopping. When everything is packed around 10 o'clock in the evening. Yang Jinyu pulled Bai Wuxi back and started talking quietly. Wuxi, do you think your dad and I should continue to teach in our hometown? Bai Wuxi looked puzzled and asked in surprise, Mom, what do you mean? Yang Jinyu coughed and replied, that's right. I was thinking that you have settled in Shanghai now. Your father and I are so far away from our hometown, and we often can't take care of you. Ahem, when you get married to Li Yuan and have a child, we can also help you take care of the child. Hearing what his mother said, Bai Wuxi's eyes suddenly widened and he looked at his mother in disbelief. His face turned red with embarrassment and he said coquettishly. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm just a freshman. You just talk about children, this is. Baiwixi lowered her head shyly. She had never expected that she was only 19 years old, not even the legal age for marriage, but her mother was already thinking about having children in the future. It was so embarrassing. Seeing Baiwixi's shy look, Yang Jinyu pouted and joked seriously. Wixi, you are not a child anymore. You know how to fall in love. I mean, if you get pregnant and have a child, you must not abort it easily. That will be very harmful to your body. If this really happens, you must tell your mother and I will help you make the decision. Baiwixi's face was already red to her neck, and she snorted in dissatisfaction. Mom, don't say it. I'm still young and don't want to have a child so early. Okay, I won't say it then. Yang Jinyu felt a little regretful. In fact, there were some things in her heart that she was embarrassed to say, mainly because her daughter was still young and had not graduated from college yet. In her opinion, if her daughter really got pregnant with Li Yuan's child first, she could just use this as a request to let Li Yuan marry Baiwixi and establish the title of wife first. This title is very important and is related to everything in the future. She also believed that if her daughter really got pregnant with Li Yuan's child, then Li Yuan's parents would definitely agree to Li Yuan marrying their daughter. Seeing that her precious daughter didn't want to talk about this issue, Yang Jinyu didn't continue to ask. This matter was just something she mentioned casually. What happened in the end depends on her daughter's own opinion. Way 11, it's like this. Your dad and I have been teaching for half our lives, and we are a little tired. What do you think? We should quit our jobs, move to Shanghai, and start some business. Baiwei 11 widened her eyes again, shocked by another piece of news from her mother, and asked in confusion. Mom, you are doing well, why do you want to quit? You two are both employed, if you quit, won't you be out of the system? Yang Jinyu chuckled, looking at her baby daughter who looked confused and shocked, and joked. Wei 11, I didn't expect you to know about the system. Baiwei 11 blushed and explained, I heard from my roommate before that she wanted to take the exam after graduation, so I just learned about it. You and my dad, teachers in public schools, are all in the system. Yang Jinyu nodded and explained, of course the establishment is very important. At that time, I asked you to apply for the accounting major because it is easy to take the civil service exam and find other jobs with this major. With your academic qualifications, you can apply for the civil service exam in Shanghai after graduating from university, settle down in Shanghai, and become a Shanghai citizen in the future. As for me and your father, the establishment of that small 8th-tier county is not worth much at all, and it is not a pity to lose it. It's just a few cents a month, and we couldn't even pay the salary in the past. The local economic level is not good, so no one cares about the establishment of such a place. If it's in a big city, it will be completely different. All kinds of treatment are very good. Baiwixi listened to Yang Jinyu's words quietly, and her heart suddenly became clear. She really didn't pay much attention to these things. It was already very good to know that public school teachers also have an establishment. Most people think that civil servants are within the system. Yang Jinyu continued. This is just a vague idea of mine, just listen to it first. I feel that the education and training industry has been very good in recent years, so I thought about setting up an education and training institution in Shanghai. Yang Jinyu said a lot, then looked at Baiwixi and smiled. Of course, setting up an education and training institution requires a lot of investment, which requires you to sponsor your mother privately. Baiwixi was even more confused when she heard that her mother was going to resign to set up an education and training institution. As far as she knew, in her hometown, many teachers were secretly running various training classes and tutoring classes. However, my parents never did it, but focused on tutoring me individually, giving me the feeling of home. Baiwixi paused before speaking. Mom, money is not a problem. I still have more than 4 million here. If it's not enough, I'll talk to Li Yuan, and he will definitely be willing to support me. But, do you really plan to quit your job and do teaching and training? Does my dad know about this? Yang Jinyu paused, thinking of Bai Tiankai's stubborn temper. At the beginning, when the two of them just met, she proposed that they work hard together in Shanghai. But because of some reasons in her mother's family, Bai Tiankai insisted on going back to his hometown to teach, and she could only helplessly follow him back to that small county town. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 536. If she told him now that she was going to let the two of them resign and start a business together, no need to think about it, he would definitely disagree. Yang Jinyu coughed. Ahem, this matter is just some thoughts in my mind. We and I can chat casually. Don't tell your dad for now. Bai Wuxi smiled and nodded. She also knew her father. Normally, he seems to have a good personality and is a bit hep-ruling, but when he really loses his temper, even a few cows can't get him back, and he has such a stubborn personality. By the way, Wei 11, let's go shopping in the city tomorrow, buy some things, and go to your grandparents' house to have a look. You have been in high school these past few years, and your studies have been heavy. It has been 3 or 4 years since you saw your grandparents. They are all old, they are over 70 this year, and their health is not good. If we don't go, I don't know if we will see each other again. Yang Jinyu was talking, but at some point, tears appeared in the corners of her eyes, showing her true feelings. As she gets older, she misses her parents more and more. If it hadn't been for Bai Wuxi's grandparents who firmly opposed it and said unpleasant words, she would have restored her relationship with her parents over the years. This time when I returned to the Magic City, in addition to looking at the house, I also wanted to take Bai Wuxi to visit her parents' home. Of course, there was another reason why she was embarrassed to speak. When Bai Wuxi saw her mother crying, she quickly stepped forward to comfort her. Mom, don't be sad. My dad and I will accompany you to visit your grandparents tomorrow. Yang Jinyu cried for a while, wiped her tears, and felt warm in her heart when she saw her sweet and sensible daughter. Well, Mom just felt it. She misses your grandparents a little bit. Well, speaking of it, for so many years, I really haven't fulfilled my filial piety to your mother. Your grandparents loved me the most at that time. By the way, there is also my third uncle. At that time, my family was poor and we had less food. He often gave me food secretly. As Yang Jinyu was talking, something suddenly came to his mind. I vaguely remembered that her third uncle's grandson seemed to be the same age as her precious daughter, and he was born at the same time. It's just that his appearance and height are ordinary, but I heard that he is very smart and his academic performance is also very good. I don't know which university he was admitted to. Yang Jinyu smiled and joked. By the way, Wei 11, among your grandparents' large family, there is another person who was born in the same year and on the same day as you. Chapter 306 Making a Phone Call. Bai Wuxi was not interested in the cousin Yang Jinyu mentioned who was born in the same year, month, and day as him, and just nodded calmly. She had only been to her grandparents' house a few times since she was a child. Because her mother had a bad relationship with that family, she had never felt the so-called family affection. Bai Wuxi suddenly yawned, reached out and patted his mouth, his eyes gradually became dull, looking very sleepy. Mom, after riding in the car for a long time, doing shopping and cleaning, I'm a little sleepy. Let's go to bed early. Seeing that her precious daughter had been given an expulsion order, Yang Jinyu could only swallow all the words in her heart that she wanted to continue saying. As a mother, She had indeed not had an in-depth conversation with her precious daughter for a long time. Especially after entering high school, the academic pressure suddenly became heavier. When Baiwixi came back every day, it was already past 10 o'clock in the evening, and it was difficult to have free time. After I went to college, even though I had more time, the freshman courses were still very easy. But because the distance became far away, there were not many exchanges. Even the relationship status of their precious daughter was unknown to them before they went to Shanghai for the National Day last year. It was rare tonight that the family stayed together in harmony, and the baby girl was willing to chat with her again. She wanted to continue chatting for a while. I still thought that I could sleep with my daughter in my arms like Baiwixi did when she was a child. Okay, it's getting late, so you should go to bed early. After Yang Jinyu finished speaking, he also yawned. As she gets older, she also feels a little tired mentally, especially in the breast area, where she occasionally feels dull swelling and pain. When she came to Shanghai this time, she also wanted to come to a big city to have a comprehensive physical examination. She is already in her 40s this year, and when she is 50, she is the age when she knows her destiny and is the most vulnerable to physical problems. In my hometown, although there is a so-called unit physical examination, the poor items are very simple, and even the county hospital is not very good. What's more, sometimes physical examinations in private hospitals can't detect anything at all, which is a pure waste of money. But it's different in big cities. As one of the two megacities in the country and the economic center of East Asia, the medical level in Shanghai is one of the best in the country. With this thought in her mind, she didn't explain it to Baiwixi now. Today is only the 6th day of the Lunar New Year, and there are still about 10 days until school starts, so there is enough time. Good night, baby. Yang Jinyu touched Baiwixi's head lovingly, said good night, and then left the room. After his mother left, Baiwixi immediately took out his mobile phone with great anticipation and flipped the phone number to a special name with the words brother, big bad, displayed on it. It's only 10 o'clock in the evening, he shouldn't be asleep yet, right? He went to the capital with Tingyu for more than 2 days. He should be back soon, right? Brother, I really miss you so much. Baiwixi murmured to herself, thinking about it in her heart, mustered up the courage, and dialed Li Yuan's phone number with expectation. Soon, a familiar ringtone sounded. It was the song The Rest of My Life written by Li Yuan for her. This is also her favorite song. She often sings it in private. She has a good singing voice. Before the Chinese New Year, Li Yuan rented a recording studio for recording songs. She, Zhong Tingyu, and Xiao's Haijin also recorded some songs and downloaded them as a souvenir. Then, she used this song as her mobile phone ringtone. Because this song was written by Li Yuan for her on her birthday, she felt that it was very memorable. The rest of my life, I only want you. After a long time, the call was connected. Just as Baiwixi was about to speak, he heard some faint sounds of collisions from the other end of the phone. Baiwixi was puzzled, and felt vaguely that the collision sounds from the phone were somewhat familiar, as if. Before Baiwixi could figure out what the sound was, Li Yuan's panting voice came from the other end of the phone. Some were rough, some were urgent, and some were intermittent, as if he was doing some kind of intense exercise. Xiao, Xiaobai, is there anything? Baiwixi listened to Li Yuan's intermittent voice and the stronger collision sounds over there, and asked curiously. Brother, what are you doing? Are you feeling unwell? On the other end of the phone. Li Yuan thought to himself, don't you look at what time it is now? It's already past 10 o'clock in the evening. What else can I do at this time of night? Of course, I'm doing something bad. Ask knowingly. Li Yuan looked at the moon goddess in front of him, lying on the bed, with full and charming curves, bending over to cater to his moon goddess. With half undressed, revealing her spring light, in the dim light, like a white gem, crystal clear, and incomparably beautiful. In his ears, he listened to Bai Wuxi's voice on the phone, making the adrenaline in his body even wilder, and the strong hormones surged throughout his body. Li Yuan listened to Bai Wuxi's doubtful voice on the other end of the phone, as if he had added an attack speed buff, and worked harder. Li Yuan spoke without any concealment, and laughed. He, it's late at night, of course you are doing bad things. Bai Wuxi, Xia's Haijin, Zhong Tingyu, the three of them, have accepted each other and the current situation. Especially Bai Wuxi and Zhong Tingyu, as former roommates, they had done some unspeakable things with Li Yuan. They had gone from being roommates in the college girls' dormitory to roommates who lived under the same roof and shared the same bed. However, when they were roommates again, he was still in the middle. Senior. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 537. Zhong Tingyu muttered to herself in confusion. Her perfect body was like a human body specimen that was carefully carved by Nuo when she created humans. In constant rhythmic panic, with the sound of collision, it seems that it is lost in confusion. Naturally, she also heard the conversation between Li Yuan and Bai Wuxi. Because, for some unknown reason, Li Yuan chose to turn on the speaker so that she could clearly hear Bai Wuxi's voice on the other end of the phone. On the other side of the phone. Hearing Li Yuan's answer and Zhong Tingyu's soft murmur from the other end of the phone, as well as the constant collision sounds. Almost instantly. As an experienced person, Bai Wuxi already understood in her heart that at this moment, the good brother in her heart was doing indescribable primitive movements with her good bestie. Suddenly, for some reason, she felt sour in her heart. The man I love, the man I have always thought about, is playing poker with other women at this moment. But I was on the phone, listening to the voice on the other side. This is too shameful. Humph, you stinky brother, you can play, I'm going to bed. Bai Wuxi replied with a sour tone and was about to hang up the phone. Unexpectedly, Li Yuan's different answer and his special request came from the other end of the phone. Li Yuan said such naughty words, but his heart became even more excited, which was directly reflected on his body, like a dragon and a tiger, charging tirelessly and violently. Bai Wuxi was still blushing and thinking about why Li Yuan said that, when she heard Li Yuan's voice continued to come from the other end of the phone. Xiao Bai, have you arrived in the Magic City today? Listening to the strange mix of male and female voices over there, Bai Wuxi's voice also changed somewhat, and he hummed. Yeah, we arrived at the Magic City at around 6 o'clock in the evening. Li Yuan's voice became deeper, thicker, and more powerful. Then, where will you stay at night? The strange feeling in Bai Wuxi's heart became more intense, causing her body to have a special reaction. She involuntarily tightened her legs and her voice became a little sharp. My parents insisted on coming to see the house. Now they live here in Tianyupan. We bought a 4-piece suit, toiletries, etc. in the evening. Li Yuan didn't care much about these things. He had so many houses in the Magic City, how could he leave his mother-in-law and father-in-law without a place to live? At this time, he just wanted to use the excuse of chatting to say a few more words to Bai Wuxi to increase his attack speed. I have to say, this feeling of talking on the phone and playing poker at the same time is really exciting for adrenaline and full of experience. Xiao Bai, please take your uncle and aunt to spend a few more days in Shanghai. Yeah, I understand, Bai Wuxi replied and asked expectantly. Brother Stinky, when will you and Tingyu return to the Demon City? Li Yuan thought about the plan he and Zhong Tingyu had discussed, and explained. It may take another 2 days. I'm looking at houses these 2 days to prepare for the expansion of Tea Beauty and Moonlight in the imperial capital. Bai Wuxi replied with some disappointment, oh, well, it will take several days before I can see you. Li Yuan smiled and said, hey, don't worry, I will go back as soon as possible. Bai Wuxi thought for a while, and then told Li Yuan about his parents' arrangements. Brother, if you can't come back in the next 2 days, then I will go to my grandparents' house with my parents. Li Yuan, well, your grandma seems to be in Xiaokan, right? It's not far from the Magic City. Bai Wuxi nodded, yeah, I don't want to go at all, I just want to stay with you. Zhong Tingyu, underneath her, listened to Li Yuan suddenly chatting with Bai Wuxi, and the ecstasy that kept coming from her body caused by the stimulation made her scream. If it weren't for the fact that Li Yuan and Bai Wuxi were still talking on the phone, she would have wanted to sing music magic. Her musical talent is not something to be underestimated. As a standard lady and a genius girl, she is proficient in all aspects of piano, chess, calligraphy and painting, music and dance. After a moment, she suddenly felt that Li Yuan's playing speed began to speed up. Straight, plain, bomb. A series of card skills left her helpless, so she could only kneel down and surrender. In my ears, I heard Li Yuan's refreshing and evil laughter, as if he had won a hearty battle. On the other end of the phone. After hearing what Li Yuan said, the blush on Bai Wuxi's face suddenly looked like blood, staining her delicate cheeks red and covering her snow-white neck. She couldn't help but think of the same thing she did when she and Li Yuan were playing poker together. I couldn't help but spit, you shameless bastard, you're dead. Then, he hung up the phone. Imperial capital, in the presidential suite. Li Yuan had entered the sage moment. Looking at the bathroom, the moon goddess was brushing her teeth, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. This kind of plot of talking on the phone and playing poker at the same time seemed like something he had only seen in action movies made by a certain player who had a good life. I never expected that this would happen to me. Hey, Xiaobai, your call today was so timely. Why didn't I think of it before? Li Yuan murmured to himself, as if he had discovered a new world. However, he was just thinking about it. It's okay to do this kind of thing once in a while as a condiment between lovers, but it's not good if it's done deliberately and often. It will make your own psychology gradually become abnormal. They may even become more and more perverted, like the second-generation rich people I saw on the internet who have a lot of fun, and their pursuits become more and more perverted, until they lead to the abyss of crime. He knows very well. Sometimes, once a person's desire valve is opened and left unchecked, he will be like a possessed man, out of control, and truly heading towards the abyss of destruction. Therefore, he is very restrained now, restraining his desires and determined not to let out the devil in his heart. Otherwise, with his current status, wealth, and popularity, countless beauties would flock to him like crazy every day. Even without him being responsible or spending any money, the girls posted a lot. If he hadn't been very restrained, it wouldn't have been any difficult for him to complete the 100 kills, let alone his girlfriends Zhong Tingyu and Xia's Haijin. In the Magic City, this big city where people are obsessed with money and money, you can live a very cool life if you have money, and if you are tall, handsome, talented, and rich, if you don't say anything else, you can really do whatever you want when it comes to falling in love. After a while, Zhong Tingyu finished washing, wore a nightgown, and came to Li Yuan's side with trembling steps. A pair of charming and sexy eyes glared at Li Yuan fiercely and hummed. "Smelly senior, you big bad guy, don't do this again, it's so shameful. Be good, baby, come here." Li Yuan laughed, patted his thigh, and motioned for Zhong Tingyu to sit over. Zhong Tingyu sat obediently on Li Yuan's lap, hugged his neck, and pinched Li Yuan's waist and abdomen with one hand. "Big bad guy." Li Yuan laughed and explained, "It was a coincidence. Xiaobai just called me to ask me about something, and she went back to the Magic City." Zhong Tingyu rolled her eyes at Li Yuan and looked at him with a half-smile. "Hard way. If you hadn't been running out of words to talk to, Wei 11 would have hung up the phone long ago. However, she did not expose Li Yuan. This stinky man has been with me for a few days, so let's satisfy his special fetish. Humph, senior, shall we continue to stay in the imperial capital tomorrow, or return to the demonic capital? Zhong Tingyu asked. Li Yuan shook his head. It's better to stay in the imperial capital for a few more days. We have made an appointment with the real estate company and we have to look at the house tomorrow. It's not good to just let go. Hearing that Li Yuan was going to stay, Zhong Tingyu felt happy, nodded her head, pursed her lips and chuckled, jokingly. If you continue to stay in the imperial capital, Tingyu won't be jealous, right? Li Yuan stretched out his big hands, rubbed them through his nightgown, teased Xiong Dakshan of Zhong Tingyu's family, and smiled. Little Moon, don't worry about this. Xiaobai and her parents are going to her grandmother's house. They should spend a few days there. Zhong Tingyu nodded, hugged Li Yuan's arm, and said with a smile, then we too will continue to carry out the original plan. Li Yuan, well, okay, tomorrow we will go to see the house first, then the store. We will decide on the house first. After the Chinese New Year, when everyone comes to work, we will start the formal expansion plan. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Ken Ru Xiahua. Chapter 538. By the way, how is the company's revenue during these New Year days? These days, he has been paying attention to the situation of Glory of the King, but he has not paid much attention to T-Beauty and Moonlight. Now, Glory of the King is the #1 money-attracting tool among all his assets, and T-Beauty and Moonlight can only be ranked second. Chapter 307 Little Moon's Triple Identity. For more than 10 days before and after New Year's Eve, Zhong Tingyu was managing the company and handling various matters. Hearing Li Yuan ask about the company's revenue, Zhong Tingyu, the executive director and personal secretary, opened his mouth and told the recent revenue data of T-Beauty and Moonlight. Overall, it's okay. Although many people have returned to their hometowns to celebrate the new year, because of the Spring Festival, their spending power has also improved a lot. Generally speaking, it remains at the same level as before. The daily income fluctuates between 3 million and 4.5 million. Because it is during the Spring Festival, our overtime wages are very high, and labor and material expenses have increased significantly. Compared with before, the daily net profit has dropped by about a quarter. When Zhong Tingyu talked about the company, she seemed like a different person. She immediately entered the state of a strong woman and talked non-stop. The high-end market in Shanghai is already saturated. According to the feedback received from our customer service, many customers want us to open Kai branches in other big cities as soon as possible. By the way, these female customers are still leaving messages, asking you to go to major cities to hold concerts. Zhong Tingyu thought of Li Yuan's idea of integrating the lottery activity into the sale of milk tea. It was really an invincible genius idea. This has completely attracted a large number of fans to become loyal customers of Chayan Use, which can bring a steady stream of income. The reason why Chayan Use can reach today is, in addition to various youth literature, in addition to excellent marketing and the best quality, a large part of the factors are due to Li Yuan's fame. When those crazy fans learned that by purchasing milk tea, they could participate in the luck draw and receive Li Yuan's autographed prizes and even concert tickets, they immediately became crazy. Some fans who are not short of money simply treat buying milk tea as a scratch ticket purely for the purpose of drawing prizes and getting rewards. Moreover, this kind of lottery is also based on luck, which is much more attractive than directly selling concert tickets at high prices. After all, the unknown is the biggest attraction. Now, in the music section of the Zhi forum, individual users post the prizes they won in the Chayan Use lottery every day, and even transfer and sell them at high prices. In addition to selling concert tickets, signed CDs, and other souvenirs, some second-hand items are also gradually being listed on Zhi for sale. Thinking of this, a bold idea suddenly came to Zhong Tingyu's mind, and she looked at Li Yuan eagerly. Senior, I suddenly thought of a new electron, I don't know if it is suitable. Li Yuan was a little surprised. Oh, new idea? Can you tell me about it? Zhong Tingyu boldly expressed her thoughts. Senior, on Zhihu, there are often transactions of second-hand items. Can we write some articles there? Just like setting up an e-commerce platform, let's establish a second-hand goods trading section. Some sellers and buyers can conduct transactions online. We charge a certain transaction fee. When Li Yuan heard Zhong Tingyu's thoughts, he couldn't help but take a deep look at this beautiful woman with top-notch intelligence and beauty. Isn't her idea a second-hand trading network? Such as Dang Dang, Zwanzwan, identifying goods, etc. It has just arrived in 2009, and e-commerce has not yet fully taken off, and there is still some time before it reaches its true peak. This kind of second-hand goods trading website is not much different from a real e-commerce platform. However, the market it targets is relatively niche and not very noticeable. You don't need to spend too much money to do it in the early stage. You can accumulate experience first and prepare for e-commerce in the future. If he directly engages in e-commerce now, it would be a bit of a big deal, and the investment required is beyond what he can afford with his current financial resources. It is likely to attract pressure from those e-commerce giants. Li Yuan quite agrees with Zhong Tingyu's idea. Start with a niche and accumulate some management experience. Otherwise, if you rush into an emerging field with huge investment, you may be shattered. This is completely different from making milk tea, playing games, and having customers. Tea Beauty and Moonlight and King of Glory became popular quickly entirely because there was still a blank market in this area, coupled with his own huge influence. Little Moon, how did you come up with this? Li Yuan asked curiously with a smile, wanting to test her opinion. Zhong Tingyu smiled sweetly and replied, during the Chinese New Year period, when you were away, I would be bored by myself, and I would also browse Zhihu.com, and then I discovered that in some sections, there were many users trade second-hand items, such as your signed CD, etc. Then, I thought that we could open up a second-hand goods trading section on Zhihu.com to provide more convenient transactions for so many users. Senior, what do you think of this idea? Can it be done? Zhong Tingyu stared at Li Yuan expectantly with her beautiful eyes, feeling a little uneasy in her heart. This time, she took the initiative to open up a new business field, which was different from the expansion of Tea-Face and Moonlight. Li Yuan did not answer immediately, but asked another question. Little Moon, if we are doing second-hand goods trading, then why not just become an e-commerce platform? Hearing Li Yuan's question, Zhong Tingyu breathed a sigh of relief and immediately got the answer. Of course, she also thought about setting up an e-commerce website directly, such as Doubao and JD.com. Now, with the highly developed internet and the substantial increase in the number of internet users, it is no surprise that online shopping will definitely become a popular industry in the future. However, she also researched some e-commerce news and was a little unsure. Senior, I have also thought about and learned about e-commerce, but I am not sure about it, and the investment is very large. Our current capital is not very sufficient. If we rush into it rashly, we will probably suffer a big fall, so I didn't mention it. I'm thinking about finding a niche product. The two are relatively similar. I can accumulate some experience first, and then try to do e-commerce when I have sufficient capital and experience. Li Yuan listened to Zhong Tingyu's explanation, nodded, stretched out his hand to rub her head, and joked. Little Moon, I really picked up a treasure. With your business acumen, it turned out to be this. Looking at Li Yuan's thumbs up, Zhong Tingyu enjoyed being touched and killed by Li Yuan. Her big crescent-like eyes narrowed and she hummed. Hee hee, you stinky senior, am I, your personal secretary, incompetent. Li Yuan smiled, well qualified, very qualified. Little Moon, with your 3 identities, what you do is top notch. 3 identities? Which 3 identities? Zhong Tingyu opened her eyes curiously. Li Yuan smiled mischievously, life secretary, physiological secretary, work secretary, hey, aren't these just 3 identities? After hearing Li Yuan's answer, especially the physiological secretary statement, Zhong Tingyu chuckled, then quickly straightened her face, stretched out her slender hands, and pinched Li Yuan's waist and abdomen. Humph, you stinky senior, you big bad guy, you are abusing your girlfriend. Li Yuan laughed, feeling Zhong Tingyu's loving touch, and joked. A capable person works hard. You are so capable and do everything so well that I can't even do it without abusing you. After Li Yuan finished speaking, he looked at Zhong Tingyu's budding and looming Xiong sisters with stern eyes. Hey, little moon, now, let my husband love you again. After saying that, he directly put the beauty in his arms down on the bed and lowered his body. Zhong Tingyu screamed, you bad guy, you don't want your life. Li Yuan chuckled, let's start with the vegetarian one. Let's study new postures tonight. Baby, lie down and let me give you a French massage. The next day. As soon as I wake up. After studying the new posture, the 2 of them, despite their slightly tired bodies, had a simple breakfast and took the hotel's special car to the place where they met with the real estate company. From a distance, Li Yuan saw 3 real estate agents in suits, 1 man and 1 woman, standing at the door of the real estate company, respectfully waiting for the arrival of Li Yuan, a big client. Brother Zhang, this big customer you mentioned really wants to buy so many houses. Is he lying to us? This woman in her 20s was wearing stockings and elaborate makeup in the middle of winter, and her body was shivering from the cold. I want to buy a courtyard house, a villa, an office building, and a store. How rich can I say? Wang Zi also didn't believe Zhang Yuan's big customers. Now that the new year has just passed, the real estate market has begun to gradually recover because the global economic crisis is coming to an end. But they couldn't believe that they had to buy so many houses at once, even villas and courtyard houses worth tens of millions. Zhang Yuan glanced at this girl. This girl was a newly recruited member of their company. She had a tall and sexy figure and very good looks. She could also be photographed by the #1 real estate company in the imperial capital. She can definitely be called a beautiful urban white-collar woman. The most important point is also what he, an old man, values most. This girl named Wangzi is very open-minded and can think broadly. Coupled with her superior conditions, it is good for her to deal with such a top customer like him. In this industry, sometimes it's difficult to make big money without doing something. Just like today's distinguished guest, the courtyard house he plans to buy is easily worth tens of millions. If the transaction is successful, the intermediary fees alone will be hundreds of thousands or millions. It is no exaggeration to say that the money earned from one transaction can buy an ordinary house in the imperial capital. Zixi, today's customer is very powerful. He is a big star and very rich. When he arrives, you can act according to my eyes. If you really need to take action, you can take action. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Ken Ru Xiahua. Chapter 539. The meaning of Zhang Yuan's words was obvious, and Wangzi naturally understood it. However, when she heard that today's customer was a big star, she subconsciously asked out of curiosity. Today's customer is a big star. Which big star is he? Do I know him? Zhang Yuan smiled slightly, you will find out later, I will definitely give you a surprise. However, after meeting him, you must pay attention to your behavior and, most importantly, keep it confidential. Big stars like them value privacy and space very seriously. Hearing Zhang Yuan's answer, Wangzi became even more curious about the upcoming big star. He, master, I'm looking forward to it now. The two stood in the cold wind, looking eagerly at the roadside. After a while, a black Bentley drove over and stopped at the door of the two of them. Before Li Yuan could get it, the driver of the special car quickly got out of the car and opened the door for Li Yuan. Li Yuan took Zhong Tingyu's little hand, got out of the car, and looked at the man and woman who had walked over quickly. My eyes stayed on this woman with a figure of about 1.75 for a moment. I was very confused. On such a cold day, the temperature in the imperial capital is -6 degrees. Wearing black stockings, are you really not afraid of problems from the cold? Beauty is beautiful, but if it freezes people, it really freezes people. When Zhang Yuan saw Li Yuan get out of the car, he immediately jogged over and greeted him respectfully. Hello, Mr. Li, I am Zhang Yuan from Shenzhen Real Estate Company. You can just call me Xiao Zhang. Li Yuan smiled, Zhang Zheng. Before he could finish his words, a quick and shocked female voice came to his ears. Are you the Xiahua male god? I am your fan, Wen 11 said excitedly, staring directly at Li Yuan. She had no idea that the big client she would receive today would be her idol. Facing the warm gaze of this beautiful and frozen long-legged girl, Li Yuan smiled slightly, nodded, and just said hello lightly. Hello. Hello, Director Li, I really didn't expect to see you here in person. Wangzi looked very excited and stuttered a little when he spoke. Director Li, you are younger and more handsome in person than on TV. I like to listen to the songs you wrote very much. I have memorized all the lyrics. Seeing the other person's little fangirl look, Li Yuan smiled, and his mood suddenly became a little better. No matter who he is very proud to be liked by girls, especially beautiful girls. Don't reach out to hit the smiling person, not to mention, the other person is still your fan. Li Yuan smiled and said, thank you. Zhong Tingyu, who was following Li Yuan, looked at the sexy and voluptuous girl with long black stockings and long legs in front of her. She suddenly became more wary. She immediately stepped forward and hugged Li Yuan's arm tightly. Then he said, Senior, it's so cold outside, let's go inside and take a look. When Zhong Tingyu said this, Zhang Yuan quickly reacted, followed up by saying something, and made a gesture of invitation. Director Li, Miss Zhong, let's go to the company to discuss it in detail. After entering the company, the temperature has been adjusted to the most suitable 26 degrees. Wangzi was making tea and coffee on the side, while Zhang Yuan made a PPT slideshow of the properties he was going to look at today, and Li Yuan introduced them in detail. Director Li, Miss Zhong, this is a courtyard house located in the second ring road, with a total construction area of 1,100 square meters. It is the largest courtyard house for sale in the imperial capital. It has a long history. It was the residence of a minister in the late Qing dynasty. It has 4 entrances and 4 out. The original owner of this courtyard house is also a star in Hong Kong and Taiwan. There is no dispute over the property rights. The overall structure of the house is in good condition. It only needs minor repairs and you can move in directly. Li Yuan looked at this courtyard house and felt very satisfied. It looked even more beautiful than some courtyard houses seen on TV. He asked directly, I want this courtyard house. Chapter 308 Can you be called a powerful person if you don't do whatever you want? Li Yuan just finished saying this. Wangzi, who was holding an iced American coffee at the side, suddenly trembled with his green little hands, and the coffee fell directly to the ground, soaking a large piece of black stockings. Hearing Wangzi's movements, Li Yuan and Zhang Yuan, who were talking, stopped in surprise and focused on Wangzi. Goose, sorry, Wangzi apologized with flushed cheeks. She was very nervous and anxious, fearing that the negotiation would go to pieces because of this gaffe. This is not just a loss of face in front of an idol, but also a loss of dignity in front of a big customer like Li Yuan. In fact, Li Yuan's tone just now was a little too inhumane. After listening to Zhang Yuan's introduction, he didn't even ask about the price of this courtyard house, and just said I want it. He was so domineering and awe-inspiring, just like the tall, handsome, and domineering boss in urban novels. This was completely beyond her knowledge. She graduated from college and had just started working in the real estate industry, which was only half a year old. Some of the customers I meet are just middle-class families. If they want to buy a house or decorate and design a house, they will shop around, worry about every detail, and negotiate for a long time before they can get it done. Moreover, she still knew something about the price of the top-grade courtyard house for sale that Zhang Yuan had just used a PPT to display. It was an astronomical figure that she could not even imagine. Zhang Yuan occasionally mentioned to him that this courtyard house was purchased by a big boss from Hong Kong and Taiwan in the early days of reform and opening up, and now he wanted to sell it for some reasons. However, the asking price is very high, much higher than the general market price. Almost all the wealthy people who made inquiries hesitated and then stopped responding. After all, in this era, there are not that many investors who can spend nearly hundreds of millions of dollars to buy a courtyard house. In terms of living comfort, courtyard houses are just like that, far from modern villas, and they cannot be modified at will. With the money to buy a courtyard house, you can buy 2 or 3 villas of the same area in the imperial capital. Zhang Yuan was also a little surprised. Although, he had already checked Li Yuan's information on the internet and knew that he was not only a talented star, but also an entrepreneur who developed the popular mobile game Honor of Kings. But he didn't expect that Li Yuan would be so angry. Even though he is an old man in a real estate company and is used to big scenes, Zhang Yuan's voice still has a tremor. He has a high emotional intelligence and didn't say anything. Don't you think about it? Don't you want to hear about the price or something? He directly extended his hand and replied, well, Mr. Li, happy to cooperate. Li Yuan smiled, shook hands, and replied, happy cooperation. After saying that, he seemed to think of something again, as if he mentioned it casually as an afterthought. By the way, how much does this courtyard house cost? Hearing that Li Yuan seemed to have just thought of the price, Zhang Yuan felt a little uneasy, worried that Li Yuan would hesitate or give up after hearing the price. He has experienced this kind of thing several times before, and some rich people also took a fancy to this courtyard house, but they all backed down when they heard the price. Zhang Yuan tried his best to keep his expression calm and replied, Mr. Li, the owner of this courtyard house is asking for 98.88 million. He said it was for good luck. What do you think? 98.88 million, Li Yuan was not too surprised when he heard this number, and even thought it was a bit low. He thought it would be at least hundreds of millions. However, after thinking about it carefully, I feel that it is almost the same. In this era, some wealthy people are not very interested in ancient houses like courtyard houses with average living comfort. Just like the 2 villas he bought in Magic City, the 2 villas in Tianyuupan and Xingawan have 3 floors, each with an area of about 1,000 square meters, and the unit price is only about 30 million. The housing prices in the imperial capital are basically the same as those in the Magic City. The price of a single-family villa is only 30 to 40 million. The price of this courtyard house can buy 3 or 4 villas with the same use area. Looking at it this way, the price of this courtyard house is very high. Zhong Tingyu on the side suddenly said, Manager Zhang, can we go and see this courtyard house now? Upon hearing this, Zhang Yuan nodded quickly, of course. The owner of this courtyard house is not in the imperial capital recently. He has entrusted our company with full authority. I can take you two to the side to inspect it now. Zhong Tingyu looked at Li Yuan, took his hand, and asked, "Dear, shall we go and take a look first?" At this time, Li Yuan naturally did not refute Zhong Tingyu's words and nodded with a smile. "That's okay, you can take a look first." After Zhang Yuan heard this, he quickly got up and took the client to see the house. It was originally part of his arrangement. How could anyone spend hundreds of millions of yuan to buy a house without viewing the house on site? Even the richest man in the country doesn't have such a treacherous attitude, right? Looking at Li Yuan's Bentley car, Zhang Yuan swallowed back the thought of driving Li Yuan himself. If the confession fails, chase her bestie. Author, Ren Shenkui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 540. Mr. Li, Ms. Zhong, I'll lead the way. Zhang Yuan drove a BMW with Wen 11, who was wearing black stockings and had long legs, and led the way. In the car, Zhang Yuan suppressed his excitement and told the beautiful, studious, and motivated female apprentice beside him. 1111, next time you encounter this kind of thing, you must be more stable and have the demeanor of not changing your face even if Mount Tai collapses in front of you. Fortunately, Mr. Li didn't care. If some customers with strange tempers encounter this kind of thing, it may greatly reduce the strength and impression of our company. When 11 blushed and stuck out her tongue, and said embarrassedly, "Master, I was too excited and shocked. Li Yuan is my idol. I didn't expect to see him in such an occasion." To him, Zhang Yuan nodded. He was very good at observing people's expressions. Suddenly, he thought of Li Yuan who had just got off the car and saw the sexy female apprentice next to him. He couldn't help but joked. "Zixi, didn't you say that you always wanted to find a rich, talented, and handsome overbearing president as your boyfriend? I think Mr. Li perfectly meets your requirements. If you take the initiative, you may get what you want." Zhang Yuan said this, which was already a clear indication to Wengzi. He knew about Li Yuan, a potential big customer, and naturally knew that Li Yuan was not a loyal man and had several girlfriends. Such a philandering man is very easy to deal with as long as he can cater to his preferences, provided that there is a really beautiful woman to show off. Although Wengzi next to him doesn't look as good as the female companion Li Yuan brought today, there is one thing that Wengzi still has her own advantages. That is, Wengzi is very sexy, with a very outstanding figure, especially the pair of big and small bears, which are particularly full and eye-catching. It is still winter, and she is wearing thicker clothes. If it is other seasons, it will be more prominent. And that pair of eyes, like a hook, can hook a man's heart away. Otherwise, he, who is very famous in the imperial capital and the ace sales of the company, would not personally take an ordinary female college student who just graduated. It is purely because of Wengzi's outstanding external conditions. This kind of thing is not uncommon in their real estate industry. Hearing Zhang Yuan's jokes and hints, Wengzi's heart was also pounding. Li Yuan has just debuted and has quickly become popular all over the country. He is tall, handsome, very talented, and a very generous billionaire. He is simply the dream lover of hundreds of millions of girls across the country. As a fan of Li Yuan, she is naturally no exception. However, she is usually very confident about her appearance and figure, but now she is a little hesitant. "Master, stop joking. The girlfriend of Xiahua is so beautiful. He definitely doesn't like me. Besides, I made a fool of myself in front of him today. Xiahua's impression of me must be even worse." Zhang Yuan looked at Wen 11 who was struggling. He glanced at her long black silk legs. He pretended to be casual and put his hand on the center console. Inadvertently, he lightly touched the long black silk legs. At the same time, he was talking to divert Wen 11's attention from her thighs. "Zixi, be confident. You are not bad. You are also very sexy and beautiful. An old man like me who is married and has children feels a little bit attracted to you when I look at you, not to mention a young man like Li Yuan who has strong hormones. Imagine that as long as you can get along well with Li Yuan and become his girlfriend, even if it is only for a short time, with his generosity, not to mention buying a house in the capital, even living in a big villa is not a problem. Not to mention, Li Yuan is your idol, with a good figure and handsome looks. How many girls want to get close to him but can't? Think about it carefully. If you miss this opportunity, you will miss it again. Listening to Zhang Yuan's earnest teachings, Wangzi completely forgot that her black silk thighs were being gently touched. Li Yuan's appearance was all in her mind. Suddenly, her heart was moved. Master, can I really do it? What should I do? Seeing Wangzi's heart was moved, Zhang Yuan smiled indifferently. For such girls with high appearance but lack of money, he understood their psychology too well. In recent years, the reason why he can be the sales champion is because he can bring female apprentices and match them with some wealthy people. Before Wangzi, there have been 3 female apprentices he brought who have successfully landed. Zixi, you have to remember one sentence: the true nature of men, there is no cat in the world that does not steal fish. You have to learn to show your value in front of men, show your advantages, and let them covet you. At this moment, Wangzi's whole brain has been covered by Zhang Yuan's words, and she asked curiously. Master, then how should I approach Zaiwa male god? Also, what are my own advantages? Do big bears and long legs count? Zhang Yuan coughed and thought, don't you know it very well? Besides, how can women show their advantages in front of men? Do I need to teach them? If you take the initiative, each of you will be a love master. Ahem, if you want to get close to him, you can use your own identity. Aren't you a fan of Li Yuan? You can use this as an excuse to communicate with him privately, and then, with some casual hints and physical contact, gradually arouse the fire in his heart. As Wangzi listened, he suddenly felt a little warmth on his long black stocking legs. As soon as I glanced out of the corner of my eye, I saw my master putting one hand on the center console, occasionally touching his long legs intimately. Immediately, she revealed a thoughtful look. Li Yuan didn't know that he just wanted to buy a few houses, but he was spotted by a sexy beauty who was very motivated. The reason why he glanced at Wen 11 was because he felt that her long legs were indeed too long, and her eyes were also a little extra tempting. However, this is a man's first reaction when he sees a beautiful woman. It doesn't mean that he has any other thoughts. Just as Li Yuan was thinking, Zhong Tingyu's faint voice suddenly came to his ears. Senior, that beauty just now is quite pretty, isn't she? Li Yuan Gang wanted to nod subconsciously, but turned around and looked at Zhong Tingyu's faint eyes, which seemed to be a smile but not a smile. He quickly stretched out his arms to hug the beauty in his arms and said with a smile. Whether she is beautiful or not depends on who she compares with. Compared with other ordinary women, she does look pretty good. But if I compare it with you, little moon, it's like a firefly and a bright moon. There's no comparison at all. You are the most perfect moon goddess in my mind. Zhong Tingyu chuckled and glanced at Li Yuan strangely. She just said it casually and didn't expect Li Yuan to answer like this. Seeing Li Yuan's funny look, she moved her eyes, continued to pretend to be jealous, and said quietly. But her bear, Dakshan is really big, with nice-looking legs and charming eyes. Li Yuan was speechless and a little confused as to what Zhong Tingyu meant. The 3 points mentioned are indeed the advantages of the other party. Only. Li Yuan's expression changed and he thought of how to answer. Little moon, there is one thing, did you forget to mention it? Zhong Tingyu asked curiously, what? Li Yuan joked, the smell of dust on her body is too strong, I don't like it. Zhong Tingyu continued to ask, what does it mean that the smell of dust is too heavy? Li Yuan smiled and explained, a girl who has been in love a lot will appear to be more promiscuous. After hearing Li Yuan's reasons, Zhong Tingyu chuckled, pursed her lips, and joked. Senior, you didn't know her before, how do you know that she has had many boyfriends? Of course Li Yuan didn't know. He couldn't read minds, or had a narration system that could listen to her thoughts, but he might as well know how to do it. Little Moon, let me tell you, with a boy's sixth sense, I can tell whether a girl has been in love or not. Do you believe it? Zhong Tingyu's eyes widened, her beautiful eyes blinked, and she looked at Li Yuan, who spoke seriously, and nodded seriously. Senior, I believe it. I believe whatever you say to me. Li Yuan originally wanted to make a joke, but when he saw Zhong Tingyu's answer, a smile suddenly appeared on his face. Haha, let's not talk about this anymore. We are at the place. Let's go down and take a look at the house. Because this courtyard house was renovated by a big star from Hong Kong and Taiwan, the quality of the house is still very good, and it has also undergone a certain degree of modernization. There are also flush toilets, bathrooms, etc. Li Yuan took Zhong Tingyu's little hand and visited it carefully. He was quite satisfied. Located near the second ring road of the imperial capital, the location is very advantageous. The quality of the courtyard is also very good and the area is large. The 4-in-1 courtyard can accommodate more than 10 people without much problem. Overall, Li Yuan was very satisfied with it, and it was not much different from Zhang Yuan's presentation on PPT. Mr. Li, Ms. Zhong, what do you think? Li Yuan nodded, not bad, 98.88 million, right? I want it. Sign the contract. Li Yuan didn't bargain at all. With a wave of his hand, he bought an imperial courtyard house worth 98.88 million yuan.